The President. Questions. Question 1. Mr. Erik YIM. President. The Development Bureau had planned to build a gallery to showcase major development projects in Wan Chai to exhibit and present major projects, including Northern Metropolis, NM, but the government subsequently decided to set up physical exhibitions in the community liaison centers of various new development areas and establish an online exhibition on a website instead. In this connection, will the government inform this council? 1. Given the view that the dispersed provision of exhibitions on NM causes a waste of resources and fails to achieve an economy of scale effect, hence the difficulty in soliciting business and attracting investment for NM, whether the government will consider concentrating the gallery sites in the Northern Metropolis region, if not, of the reasons for that. 2. Whether it will consider appropriately expanding the scale of Inno Hub and designating a dedicated zone to display the development blueprint of NM so as to reduce duplication of resource allocation and attract public attention in a more focused manner. And 3. Whether it will draw on the mainland's successful experiences in gallery planning, such as those of Pudong in Shanghai, Nansha in Guangzhou, and Qianhai in Shenzhen, to display the development outcomes of major projects visually and dynamically by integrating non-costly technologies such as AI-driven VR, holographic projection, 3D multimedia, and interactive stand table to create panoramic immersive experiences, thereby enhancing the effectiveness in soliciting business and attracting investment. Secretary for Development. President, the NM is a key engine for Hong Kong's future economic development. With the fundamental planning now in place and land supply progressively being made available, the development of the NM has entered a new stage. One of the major tasks is to facilitate enterprises to participate in construction and to promote industry anchoring. At the same time, it is essential to foster social consensus, enabling the public to better understand and support the development of the NM. A reply to various parts of the questions raised by Mr. Erik YIM is as follows. 1 and 2. The establishment of exhibition galleries relating to the NM serves two major objectives. First, it aims to facilitate public understanding and support for the NM as Hong Kong's strategic growth area. Second, it seeks to attract enterprises and investment by showcasing the potential of the NM, thereby facilitating enterprises to participate in construction, attracting the establishment of enterprises, and fostering industry clustering. Following an earlier preliminary exploration, we had once proposed the construction of a gallery on a site at the Wan Chai North Harbourfront, including the NM, among other major infrastructure projects. Having listened to views from the community and the LegCo and taking into account the priorities of work and resource allocation, we consider that this is not the appropriate time to pursue the project. In fact, the implementation of such a project would require a relatively long lead time, which cannot meet the immediate need to attract enterprises and investment to the NM. If the purpose is to only introduce the NM to the general public, the government has in recent years set up a dedicated NM exhibition zone at the City Gallery in Central. For the objectives of attracting enterprises and investment, our experience shows that the enterprises interested in exploring participation in the development of the NM often wish to gain close-up understanding of its latest progress and conduct on-site visits. At present, the government has established community liaison centers, CLCs, in several new development areas, NDAs, in the Northern Metropolis, including Kutong North, Fanlin North, Hong Shui-Kiu, and the Loop. The CLCs for Fanlin North and the Loop, commissioned in 2023 and 2024, respectively, have incorporated exhibition facilities showcasing the planning and works of various NDAs and have become the first two district exhibition centers of the NM. The exhibition content of the Fanlin North CLC even covers the overall planning and development of the NM. Following this direction, the Hong Shui-Kiu CLC, which is scheduled to have completed relocation and expansion around the first quarter of this year will also include exhibition facilities, introducing the Hon Chun NDA, as well as the overall planning and development of the NM. Experience shows that these district exhibition centers can more effectively complement the on-site visits, showcasing the concrete development achievements of the respective areas to visitors, thereby better focusing on the current work of attracting enterprises and investment. Looking ahead, we will consider expanding the exhibition content of the Inno Hub at the Loop, as mentioned by the member just now, to cover the development of the adjacent Santin Technopole, Ma Chou Lung, and even the entire Northern Metropolis. In addition, we plan to establish a larger and multi-purpose core exhibition gallery for the NM in the Kutong North NDA, with the first phase targeted for commissioning in 2027. This will replace the existing CLC in Kutong North, which is of a much smaller scale. Compared with the Inno Hub at the Loop, Kutong North is more suitable as the location for the NM Core Exhibition Gallery, given its proximity to the East Rail Line Kutong Station scheduled to commission in 2027, offering convenient transport access. This site is also close to the museum to showcase national development and achievements, which has already been designated to be located in Kutong North, allowing for future development of an exhibition cluster. Moreover, the Long Valley Nature Park is nearby, enabling visitors to the exhibition gallery to also tour the park and appreciate the NM's vision and achievements of coexistence of development and conservation. In addition to physical galleries, we will also establish an online exhibition platform on the dedicated NM website, making use of multimedia to introduce the NM to viewers within and outside Hong Kong. 3. We agree that in order to attract visitors and enhance the effectiveness of attracting enterprises and investment, it is not only important to provide rich exhibition content, but also to place emphasis on curatorial approaches. In this regard, we will continue to draw reference from galleries in the mainland and other places, planning from the perspective of visitors and adopting multimedia and technology-based presentation methods. For example, the Fanling North CLC is equipped with holographic projection and three-dimensional models to present the overall picture of the NDA in a tangible manner. It also offers immersive experiences through image projection to create virtual reality, enabling visitors to experience a flyover of the Fanling North NDA. In addition, there are simulated driving games, allowing visitors to learn about and experience the development of the relevant NDA and the NM as a whole through diverse formats. The future core exhibition gallery of the NM in Kutong North under planning will adopt more innovative technologies to create a panoramic interactive platform. Through multimedia presentations and multi-perspective displays, the exhibition gallery will highlight the NM as Hong Kong's new engine of future development, enabling the public to gain a more direct understanding of the planning blueprint and allow investors to acquire more concrete appreciation. Mr. Eric Yim. Thank you, President. The government is having a tight budget. I wonder if the administration will adopt another approach, that is the BOT model, to invite commercial enterprises to invest in the hall, and after it's built, the management will be handed over to the administration, while other facilities will be run by the enterprise. This will facilitate investment and allow commercial services to be offered to visitors and residents nearby. Secretary, thank you, President. As the member said, we do have to make good use of our resources. At various areas in the Northern Metropolis, we invite potential investors and visitors to look at our exhibitions. Apart from the core exhibition gallery that I mentioned, we may invite the market to provide floor space for other exhibitions. At different land parcels in North Metropolis, especially in Hon NDA, we do have land parcels that are near the Hon MTR station. They have been planned for commercial purposes. The uses of commercial lands are diverse. They can include exhibition and facilities for exhibition galleries. If there are enterprises that are willing to invest in such premises, we will complement that, and we will allow for that, and we will remind ourselves of such an idea when we plan for the sites. Dr. Hui Simon Lee. Thank you, President. The government plan to showcase the Northern Metropolis at different CLCs, and they don't have a plan to build a dedicated exhibition centers. I wonder if the staff of the NMCO will be stationed at these CLCs so that they can talk to potential investors. Thank you. Secretary. President, we do have a plan to build a core exhibition gallery in the Northern Metropolis to offer information to potential investors. At Kutong North, we are going to build a new exhibition gallery. The reason why the gallery can be commissioned in 2027 is because we will adopt a no-frills approach. It is of 5,000 square meters. It's not small in scale. Compared to the floor area in City Gallery, this one in Kutong North is much larger. But as we adopt a no-frills approach, we believe that it can be commissioned in 2027 and play its role. Mr. Rock Chen. President, apart from the measures mentioned by the Secretary, including building a core exhibition gallery in the Northern Metropolis and staging exhibitions in various CLCs and its website, I wonder, apart from these dynamic exhibitions, if the government will work with other government departments such as the Go Global Task Force in forming a task force to attract enterprises and investment. Secretary, sorry, I missed a question just now. I will answer it right now. Many CLCs have been turned into district exhibition centers. We do have staff from the NMCO to lead the visit. We never just leave the visitors there. We always have NMCO staff explaining the development of Northern Metropolis to our visitors at these exhibition centers. Mr. Chen asked if we will have Invest Hong Kong and Oasis and Go Global Task Force work with the NMCO. Well, the collaboration is actually underway. When the Go Global Task Force are in touch with the potential investors, they often explain to them our education, our system, so on and so forth. But when it comes to land, the Development Bureau often take part in the discussion. We often lead the visitors to the NM to conduct on-site visits. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, President. It is important for us to attract enterprises and investment to the Northern Metropolis. It's like selling properties. As a developer, we have already built premises, and we have also flats not put up for sale yet. When we buy properties, we don't just look at the surrounding environment, not just the price. We also need to know when the premises or flats will be made available. We do have many blueprints for our infrastructures, for our businesses. But I wonder if we have a timetable as to when the land will be able to be handed over to our investors. Secretary, thank you. We often publish figures on the area of land that has been farmed, that have been resumed and built on our website. We do also have a 5-year plan published. We also announce the area of land that we have available in 10 years' time. All these information and figures are available online. As the member mentioned, we have exhibition galleries in many different areas, and these figures and information are actually available also in these centers. We also try to explain to the public the figures and the plan via graphics. We also tell the public where the land will be made available in the Northern Metropolis. Mr. Lee Shan-kan, thank you, President. In the last term of the LegCo, we talked about how we can turn the Northern Metropolis, which we often hear about, into something in that people talk about in their daily lives. And wonder if the Secretary will work with, say, Education Bureau or ITIB in making use of our current IP such as Labubu and Naja and turn them into animation or cartoons. Maybe we can make YouTube videos, publish videos on Weibo and Xiaohongshu so that people know more about the roadmap of the Northern Metropolis Development. Secretary, thank you. The members suggest that we use some cuter ways to promote the Northern Metropolis. We will look into his idea. We will see if we can execute it. Let me take this opportunity to share with you this. We adopt multi and different approaches in promoting the metropolis. Apart from exhibition galleries, we also go into the community. We go out of Hong Kong to promote it. Every year, our colleagues of NMCO actually select some schools to explain to the students there the Northern Metropolis. We have also organized many different competitions. We have a naming competition for public rental housing in the Northern Metropolis. We also work with different professional bodies. We invite schools to assign homeworks to their students on Northern Metropolis. We stage exhibitions not only in Hong Kong but also in other cities in the Greater Bay Area. Whenever we have international summits in Hong Kong, say for example the finance, the AFF that we organized recently, we often promote the Northern Metropolis to international visitors and participants of these summits. We will try to be more creative in this regard. Mr. Jonathan Lamport. Thank you, President. Other than the Northern Metropolis, there are other major infrastructure projects in Hong Kong, say, for example, the Kai Tak Stadium, the Central Kowloon Bypass. When we attract enterprises, or as we meet with potential investors, we often bring them to landmarks in Hong Kong. I think that we should build an exhibition gallery on major infrastructure projects in Hong Kong. When we have clients come to Hong Kong, sometimes they don't have time to go around Hong Kong. If we can have an infrastructure exhibition gallery, it's easier for us to attract investment. Thank you. Secretary. We did propose to construct an exhibition gallery at the Wan Chai North Harbor Front. At that time, we planned to showcase not just the Northern Metropolis, but also other major infrastructure projects there. At that time, a LegCo member suggested staging a relevant exhibition in the City Gallery. This is how we can better use land resources and achieve a cluster effect. When we plan for the exhibition gallery on major infrastructure projects. We will look into whether we can stage an exhibition in the city gallery or select a better location. But there is such an urgency for us to have a gallery on the Northern Metropolis to showcase the plan to the visitors. Next, Mr. Nick Chan. Thank you, President. I visited a gallery in the Northern Metropolis. I saw many videos on the design of future buildings in the Northern Metropolis. I found it very interesting. The video talks about the area where Hong Kong and Shenzhen would collaborate. I have a question on this. I wonder if we can have an exhibition gallery in Futian so that the mainland residents know more about our plan. And I wonder if we can stage a roving exhibition. You're only allowed to put one question. Secretary, please pick one to answer. President, if we're talking about the loop on the Hong Kong side, we already have an Inno hub that talks about the Northern Metropolis. The member asked if we can build a gallery on the mainland side. Well, we don't rule out that possibility, but we have to make sure that it's cost effective. On our side of the loop, we're going to build a footbridge of some 200 meters that connect the Hong Kong and Shenzhen side. Do we need two galleries that are so close to each other? If mainland residents want to know more about the Northern Metropolis, they can just come here. We do have some roving exhibitions organized regularly on the mainland. Thank you.
Question number 2, Ms. Maggie Chan. Thank you, President. It has been reported that the Housing Department and the Social Welfare Department launched a pilot scheme in Kwun Tong and Sha Tin in July last year to assist district services and community care teams or care teams in identifying and supporting singleton or doubleton elderly households more accurately by consolidating data from both departments. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, of the progress of the care team's work of supporting elderly people in these 2 pilot districts since the commencement of the pilot scheme, including the number of indoor or wearable emergency alarm systems, or commonly known as EAS, that have been provided with their assistance so far, and whether it has plans to introduce other German technology products for use by elderly people and extend the pilot scheme to the 18 districts across the territory. 2, whether the data consolidated under the pilot scheme include information such as family members of elderly, health conditions of the elderly, their demand for community support, and their situation of receiving government assistance of the government departments currently responsible for data analysis and coordination. And 3, whether it will expeditiously establish a comprehensive singleton and doubleton elderly family database integrated with a comparative analysis of data from government departments and public bodies such as the Social Welfare Department and Housing Department and the Hospital Authority, so as to better assist singleton and doubleton elderly families. If so, of the timetable. If not, the reasons for that. Secretary for Labour and Welfare. President, the government implements a variety of measures to provide subsidized community care and support services for elderly persons in need, including daycare services for the elderly, home care and support services, the community care service voucher scheme for the elderly, and so on. At the same time, as carers play an important role in supporting elderly persons and persons with disability living in the community, the government has spared no effort in strengthening support for carers of elderly persons and carers of persons with disabilities so as to alleviate their physical and mental stress and enable care recipients to be looked after in a more comprehensive manner. I will now elaborate on the relevant measures and provide a consolidated response to the parts of questions raised by Ms. Maggie Chan. to identify households of singleton and doubleton elderly persons, carers of elderly persons, and carers of the disabled in need, the government launched the District Services and Community Care Teams scheme on supporting elderly carers in March 2024 on a pilot basis in Tsuen Wan and Southern District, and extended the scheme to all 18 districts of Hong Kong in April. As at the end of December 2025, more than 450 care teams across the territory had visited or contacted under the scheme over 79,000 households of singleton or doubleton elderly persons, carers of elderly and carers of the disabled in need, provided them with care and support and made service referrals. Among these households, more than 2,700 of them successfully received subsidies for installing the EAS. Meanwhile, the government has been promoting wider application of germ technology and rehabilitation care technology in society. The government allocated $1 billion in 2018 for setting up the Innovation and Technology Fund for Application in Elderly and Rehabilitation Care, or INT Fund, to subsidize eligible elderly and rehab service units to procure, rent, or trial use tech products with a view to improving the quality of life of service users and reducing the stress on care staff and carers. As I mentioned in my written reply 2 weeks ago, the government injected an additional $1 billion into the INT fund last year, enabling eligible community elderly and rehab service units to apply for the procurement of suitable tech products so that elderly and the carers can borrow these products and use them at home, thereby extending the application of tech products for use at home. As announced in the Chief Executive 2025 Policy Address, the Labour and Welfare Bureau will install on a pilot basis intelligent accident detection systems for 300 high-risk care households, including households with elderly or the disabled this year, to strengthen support to carers so as to achieve real-time detection, early intervention, and prompt assistance. We expect to announce the detailed arrangements in the first quarter of this year, the earliest, and will strive to complete installation in or before the third quarter. Households participating in the pilot project will be exempted from all fees. We will commission the university to evaluate the effectiveness of the project, which will serve as a reference for implementation of and adjustments or improvements to the measure in future. Regarding the Carer Support Data Platform, our Bureau and the Social Welfare Department launched 2 pilot schemes in July last year. The first one, as mentioned in part 1 of the question, involves collaboration with the Housing Department. The scheme aims to establish a community support network for high-risk groups which have yet to receive social welfare service support. By consolidating data from both departments, we have identified high-risk households comprising singleton, doubleton elderly that are relatively older and lack community support, as well as high-risk households of carers of elderly and carers of the disabled. We have then deployed care teams to contact and visit these households and provide them with care and suitable support. In September 2025, we extended this pilot scheme from KOON and Sha Tin to 18 districts in Hong Kong. As at the end of December 2025, care teams had contacted or visited over 27,000 high-risk households, made over 1,800 welfare service referrals, and assisted them in applying for EAS as needed under the scheme. Some of these applications were counted in the aforementioned 2,700 households, which successfully received subsidies for installation and service of EAS. Now, the other pilot scheme is relevant to the database mentioned in part 3 of the question. We established the first phase of the Carer Support Data Platform in July last year with the objective of providing emergency support to hospitalized carers and assist them in looking after their care recipient at home. We have initially connected data from the Social Welfare Department, Hospital Authority, and Housing Department. When the Social Welfare Department learns from the Hospital Authority's notification mechanism that the carer is hospitalized and the household may be at care risk, the department will arrange staff to contact the care recipient and provide emergency support based on the needs, such as respite services and meal delivery, to achieve early intervention. As at the end of December, the Social Welfare Department had contacted over 3,100 carer cases, with 3 cases identified as those requiring immediate emergency support. For the remaining cases, the department provided them with contact details of social welfare units so that support for care recipients could be provided when needed. In future, the government will systematize the relevant database and progressively expand its coverage. The next target is to include high-risk households living in Hong Kong Housing Society public rental units and 3 new buildings. Thank you, President. Ms. Maggie Chan. Thank you, President. Now, the Secretary's reply refers to systemizing the relevant database and progressively expanding the coverage. Now, I acknowledge the efforts because at the moment, government databases are fragmented. There are different databases for the housing department and the district care teams. There is a database to support the scheme on supporting elderly and carers. There is another database to support the carer support data platform, not to mention the individual data banks kept by the NGOs in the community. Now, the Secretary has not illustrated in his reply whether the government will also collect data from these different data sources and consolidate them, and which department will be responsible for data analysis. I'd like the Secretary to give me a further response or perhaps give a thought to this suggestion. Thank you. President, Ms. Maggie Chan asked a very good question. Let me briefly explain how databases are handled. Now, like Ms. Maggie Chan said, basically the Social Welfare Department is the largest data source because of the data that relates to the elderly and the disabled. There are those who are on the government doles and on cash assistance, service support. As for other groups of recipients, data are kept by different government departments as well as NGOs. We need to resolve a technical bottleneck, and that is privacy laws. Now, we need to discuss with the Privacy Commissioner because if we need to gauge the health condition of carers to assess risk, we need to ensure that we do not breach the law, and we need consent in advance. We can work with, for example, the Hospital Authority and Social Welfare Department in providing mutual data access for the 10,000 carers of elderly and disabled or so. And we need to find a proper avenue as far as the law is concerned so that we meet the privacy requirements and that can help us connect data. When the technology is mature, there will be other measures available. For example, for those low-income earners, if they are hospitalized, the hospital authority will issue a notice right away, and that will be informed, and then the Tongwa Group of hospitals runs a hotline 182183. It runs 24 hours. For those in need, we will take their calls, and then social workers will come in. Ms. Grace Chan, in relation to the pilot scheme and the use of data, will the government consider allowing social welfare service units in the community to have access to the database as well? If so, can you tell us the implementation details, if not the reasons? Now, this is only the first step as far as a pilot scheme is concerned. Take the housing department as an example. We gauge the high-risk households, and then we invite care teams to visit them. If need be, there will be service referrals. Now, the care teams will make the first step, but the care team members do not have experience in social welfare. They are not professionally trained. So they can refer these cases to the welfare units. And we can also engage the service units to help directly. We don't rule this out. We want to keep things flexible. We just want to make sure that we are able to identify the high-risk households and provide suitable support in a timely manner. Mr. Chan Pui-Lang, according to the Secretary's reply, as at the end of December 2025, over 79,000 households with potential needs were visited, and then 2,700 households received assistance in terms of installing the EAS. That's roughly 3 to 4%. I just want to know the reasons why the majority of households do not get the support. Right, we are not able to provide a lengthy answer here. Safe to say that we take care of those who are living in poverty and they are the most underprivileged, and we help fund the installation of EAS. As for other cases, the district care teams visited them and, if need be, made service referrals. I do not have the nitty-gritty with me today. I will let you know later about the services provided. Mr. Kisan Yang. Thank you, President. Apart from providing support with precision through data connectivity. We also need to make sure that our elderly people are aging in the community happily. With an aging population in Hong Kong, we have more and more elderly people living by them alone. So we now have this community support fund for elderly. Can we make use of this fund so as to subsidize different activities organized by different organizations so as to build a good support network for our elderly living in the community? There are some 200 elderly centers rented by the Social Welfare Department, and for elderly people in poorer health conditions who lack self-care skills, we also have daycare centers. We provide a basket of services for the elderly. What is important is to let the elderly as well as the carers know what services are available, because we do have a big basket of services. If need be, referrals can be made. They can apply for these services. So we are here to support them. We just want to make sure that they know of these services. Mr. Hon YIM. Thank you, President. I need to declare that I am a member of a care team in the mid-levels district, and I am also involved in an organization that runs care teams. My question is, will the government develop a data platform and open a file for each elderly person, which includes consolidated on accommodation, health, welfare status, emergency contact, etc., so that social workers, care team members, and healthcare professionals can have access to these files to provide one-stop care to the elderly in the community? Secretary. Thank you, President. This is a very bold suggestion. It's also visionary coming from Mr. Hong, but we need to resolve the legal issues. For high-risk elderly and the files, as you mentioned, the Social Welfare Department keeps these files. We have 1.7 million elderly people in Hong Kong aged 65 or above. We already have 3/4 of them kept in our database because they are on various assistance schemes. We want to identify elderly singletons or doubleton households with higher risks. We need to come up with more ways to reach out to them and collect data from them. We used to do it manually. Now we want to go smart so that we can provide support in a more precise manner. We engage, for example, the care teams and other social welfare service units. And we'll give it a thought, but it's very difficult to achieve this overnight. Mr. Stanley. Thank you, President. I thank the government for heeding suggestions and establishing the database platform. Now, in the past, we talked about identifying singleton and doubleton elderly households. The government replied by saying that they did not have data in this regard. Now they are making a good start, and the FTU also proposed a 4-tier structure when it comes to building a protection or safety net for them. That is in relation to policy or community work. Now, my question for the Secretary is, policy-wise, can we have a comprehensive strategy to promote elderly policies? For example, will there be a policy for some smart door sensors to be installed so as to identify elderly at risk? Secretary. Thank you, President. Now, Mr. Ng also refers to data. I'd say that we do have a database. There is a reason why we are not making full use of the data because of privacy concerns. This is the obstacle for data collection. Now, if we're able to resolve this privacy issue concerning an individual's health condition, then we'll be able to exchange data. It's like oil drilling. Now, once we have data exchange, we will be able to identify at-risk households in a more precise manner. And then we can provide support. Like Mr. Ng said, we already have a very good network. For example, we have some 200 elderly centers subvented by the Social Welfare Department. We also have elderly daycare centers that provides meal delivery service and other services to frail elders. And we also have Jaron technology products. You may be concerned about double elderly households. If one of them is hospitalized, if one of them trips and falls, then what will happen? Now, that is why we are trying out some smart gadgets so as to detect the fall of elderly. And we're not just trying out one technology. In fact, through the R&T fund, we make trial use of 2 technologies. Whichever proves to be successful will be further promoted. Ms. Elaine Chick. I am the spokesperson of the DAB on welfare matters, and I support this carer support data platform so that data can be consolidated and put to better use. The medical fees reform introduced earlier caused a lot of nuisance to elderly applicants because of the cumbersome application process. Now that there is exchange of data between the Social Welfare Department and Housing Department as well as the Hospital Authority, will the government consider making use of this data on the waiver of medical fees so that the needy groups, especially elderly people, can benefit from it? Secretary, thank you, President. The medical fee reform and the waivers are not actually under my purview, so do allow me to refer your suggestion to the Health Bureau for further consideration. Ms. Jody Kwok. As I understand from the Secretary, they are trying out different technologies. Now, I am concerned about these trials in collaboration with the Housing Department, and they target elderly tenants living in public rental housing who are not on any kinds of elderly support or assistance. But in the future, the government will also consider extending the scheme to target those living in Hong Kong Housing Society, public rental units, and 3 new buildings. We also have singleton, doubleton elderly households living in private properties as well. They also need help. So will there be a measure to further enhance data connectivity so as to help these groups not living in public housing? And I'd also like to ask the Bureau, in terms of privacy issues, what other measures will be rolled out so as to identify needy service users in a more precise manner? Secretary, thank you, President. Thank you, Ms. Kwok. Indeed, in order to address the privacy concerns, we need to have some very detailed discussions between our lawyers and the Privacy Commissioner. We are empowered under the law, and I'd say that this question has been addressed. Like I said, it's like oil drilling. It's very easy to start with tenants living in public rental housing. The next step is to target those living in 3 new buildings. It's not an easy task, but we're going to enlist the help of care teams as well as social welfare organizations. Now, these elderly people in 3 new buildings tend to be those living in poverty. They may be on some kind of dole, such as the old age living allowance or disability allowance, and therefore data will be available. For those living in private properties, however, they may get the old age allowance, but it won't be easy for us to have access to these households. So the next step, after addressing those living in 3 new buildings, we will have to discuss with the property management companies to come up with ways for us to access the elderly households in private properties. Well, for these singleton, doubleton elderly households, they may still have welfare needs.
Question 3, Reverend Peter KOON. Thank you, President. It is learned that the number of foster families has continued to decrease in recent years, making it difficult to find matches for children in need. In this connection, will the government inform this Council, 1. Whether it will consider reviewing the substitute mechanism for foster families, including not deducting allowances during reasonable substitute periods and establishing district-based substitute support networks, such as setting up a partner family mechanism to enable foster families to assist each other in providing short-term care for foster children when necessary. If so, of the details. If not, the reasons for that. 2. Whether it will consider formulating an inflation-linked foster care allowance for maintenance of foster children's expenses and an incentive payment for foster families, and increasing these amounts to cover foster children's reasonable expenses on learning and development activities, for example, tutorial fees, as well as recognizing the selfless contributions of foster parents. If so, of the details. If not, the reasons for that. And 3. As there are views that community recognition for foster families is insufficient, whether in order to commend the contributions of foster families and promote the building of a foster family-friendly society, the government will encourage the business sector to launch a foster-friendly card to provide foster parents with concessions on transport, shopping, and arts, cultural, leisure, and recreational services, etc. If so, of the details. If not, the reasons for that. Thank you. Secretary for Labour and Welfare. President, residential child care services subsidized by the Social Welfare Department can be categorized into institutional and non-institutional services, which provide 24-hour free-of-charge transitional residential care and protection for children and young persons who temporarily cannot be adequately cared for by their families due to various reasons. Foster care is a type of non-institutional service for children under 18 who cannot be adequately cared for by their families due to various family issues or emergencies, so that they can continue to enjoy family life until they can reunite with their families or a long-term alternative welfare arrangement is reached. The consolidated reply to the 3 parts of the question raised by Reverend Peter KOON is as follows. To ensure children in need receive appropriate care and to encourage suitable families to join foster care service, the SWD regularly disburses allowances and incentive payments to foster parents, including maintenance grants for foster children and incentive payments for foster parents. At the same time, an additional incentive payment is also provided to foster families taking care of children with special needs or children under 6. Furthermore, when a child is placed in a foster family, the foster parents will receive a one-off setting up grant. These allowances and payments are adjusted annually according to the Composite Consumer Price Index. Maintenance grants for foster children is provided for foster parents to cover the foster children's monthly living expenses, including food and daily necessities. According to the existing mechanism, if a foster child is arranged by the caseworker to temporarily leave the foster home for home leave, the incentive payments for foster parents and the additional incentive payments will continue to be disbursed to the foster parents without deduction, while the maintenance grants for foster children will be deducted according to the number of days the child is away from the foster home. If foster parents need to take leave for various reasons and cannot take care of the child, the foster child will be arranged to receive care service at another foster home. During the relief care arrangement period, foster care allowance will be disbursed to the foster family, providing relief care to the foster child concerned until the foster child returns to the original foster family. To improve the arrangements of relief care, the SWD launched a 1+1 recruitment scheme in January 2024 to encourage members of the public who are interested in providing foster care services to submit applications together with their relatives and friends for taking care of the same foster child, so that they can swiftly stand in for one another when one party is temporarily unavailable. The 1+1 scheme facilitates mutual support between the shared households and also saves the need for a foster child to stay in an unfamiliar environment. To further strengthen support for foster care services, the government has implemented a series of enhancement measures in recent years, including substantially increasing the incentive payments starting from April 2024 to encourage dedicated individuals to become foster parents. The monthly incentive payments of ordinary foster care service has been increased more than double, from around $5,000 to about $11,000, and that for emergency foster care service has been doubled from around $6,600 to about $13,000. In the past 3 years, the number of registered foster families increased from 978 in 2023 to 1,112 as at the end of 2025. Representing an increase of about 14%. Moreover, starting from January 2025, the government has allocated additional resources to strengthen support to foster parents and enhance service quality, including increasing manpower of social workers in NGOs, providing training and professional support for foster parents, extra support for foster children with special learning or care needs, and arranging early assessment and professional rehabilitation therapy and training for them. Additional allowances are also provided to cover the expenses for extracurricular activities, tuition classes and interest classes, etc., thereby meeting the child's learning and development needs. In order to recognize the contributions of foster families and promote the building of a foster-friendly society, the SWD annually holds parent-child activities for foster families which provide an opportunity for foster children to express their gratitude to foster parents. Besides, the SWD regularly holds the Foster Families Service Award presentation ceremony to present awards to foster families to give recognition to their care and outstanding contributions to foster children, and also call on more people to join the service with a view to bringing love and care for more children in need. In addition, the SWD has been collaborating with NGOs to promote foster care through various channels and media, including inviting foster parents to share their experiences of caring for foster children on media platforms, so as to recognize their dedication and contribution and raise public awareness of foster care services. The SWD will continue to review the utilization of foster care services and will maintain communication with NGOs providing foster care services to ensure that foster care services can meet the needs of foster children and safeguard their well-being. Thank you, President. Reverend Peter KOON. Thank you, President. In recent years, our population has been aging, coupled with a declining birth rate. There are certain requirements for foster families, for example, past experience, which made the application process more tedious and complicated. So in view of that challenge, what will the governments do to encourage more individuals to join the foster care services? Secretary, President, I thank Reverend KOON for his observations. He pointed out the challenges that we are facing. To be a foster parent is not an easy task. You must be a very loving individual. And many existing foster parents are getting older, and it would be challenging for them to take care of children given their physical conditions. Now, we made a decision, that is 2 years ago, we drastically increased the amount of incentive payments for foster families by a double. The goal was to enhance awareness and recognition for foster parents in society and also alleviate the concerns of individuals who would like to become foster parents. There is a larger amount of incentive payments and there will be more support for foster parents. We want to maintain the number of foster families available. Now, through our activities, there is an increase in the number of foster families. Starting from year 2024, after the drastic increase in incentive payments, in 2 years' time, an additional 229 families have joined foster care services. We are greatly encouraged and we thank these families for their support. Mr. Alex Fan, President, according to the SWD's figure, by the end of 2025, there are 1,112 foster families in Hong Kong. And according to a 2022 survey, 20% of foster parents would like to opt out from these services within 3 years' time. So is there a mechanism to review the existing policy effectiveness in retaining and attracting foster families? And is there a target for the growth in the number of foster families so as to ensure that the supply can sustainably meet the needs of foster child? Secretary. Thank you, President. Mr. Fan's question, Professor Fan's question, has hit the nail on its head. Now it would be best to provide a living environment in a family setting to foster children. We increase the number of foster families through a three-pronged approach. First, in 2024, we have significantly increased the incentive payments for foster families. Second, more support for foster families. Now, according to the figures, every 1 in 2 children requiring foster care has special needs. It requires a tremendous amount of love and care. We need to provide foster parents with sufficient support. 3, we need recognition from the public. It's for that reason that we are organizing award presentation ceremony regularly and organize parent and child activities for foster families. As the Secretary for Labor and Welfare, I do my best to attend these activities myself to show that society recognizes the contribution made by foster parents. Mr. Chu Lap Wei. Thank you. Now, I think the idea raised by Reverend Peter KOON, that is foster-friendly card, is a good idea that will encourage more businesses to provide support to foster parents. Now, there are some NGOs which procure daily necessities for foster families from supermarkets on a large-scale basis. So will this arrangement be extended to foster families? Will the government take the lead to encourage more businesses to help foster families? Secretary. We welcome any move to give support and recognition to foster families. Now, about the foster-friendly card, it comes with a cost. We only have 1,112 foster families. Unlike Choyo card, it covers some 2 million population. The cost effectiveness is much higher in creating the Choyo card. Now, maybe we can take an alternative route to do this. There may be other methods to offer recognition and support to foster families. We will support any methods which can achieve that. Mr. Ken Wong. President, to enlarge the source of foster families, we need to encourage more individuals from different backgrounds to participate, including middle-class couples. Now, according to the Secretary, many foster parents are getting older. Foster families are important because they help nurture the future pillars of society. Now, I'm pleased to see that there are incentive payments as well as award ceremony for foster parents. But what about tax concession? It's more than financial support, but rather a token of recognition for foster families. So would the government consider creating a tax concession item for foster parents? Secretary. A tax concession is not under the purview of the Labor and Welfare Bureau, but I thank the member all the same. Now, we are collaborating with the Housing Authority. On the other hand, foster families come from a wide range of backgrounds. Some of them are very well off. Some of them are living in public housing estates. Now, when we increase the amount of incentive payments for foster parents, some families were concerned that the increased amounts would render them ineligible for public housing. So we alleviated the concern of these foster families living in public housing, that the increased incentive payments would not cause them any trouble. So in relation to foster parents from different family backgrounds, be they from the middle class or from a grassroots families, we have measures to help them. Now, the incentive is just one form of help, the other being support for children with learning difficulties. And the other is recognition from society. The more we give our support to foster families, the better we can attract more people to join. Ms. Elaine Chick. Thank you, President. I thank the government for recognizing foster families' contributions in protecting child welfare. In 2024, the incentive payment has been drastically increased. Since then, we saw growth in the number of applicants to become foster parents. Now, the number of families waiting for a match remains at 300. Has that number gone down because of more families joining the service? Can we achieve zero waiting time for children in need of care? Secretary, thank you. According to my figures at hand, as at the 31st of December 2025, there were 234 children waiting for a match. On average, we can match them with a foster family in 1.95 months. Achieving zero waiting time may not be possible. Even with sufficient supply, it takes time to give the child an appropriate match. So these are non-urgent cases. For urgent cases, we will give them a match immediately. Ms. Judy Chen. Thank you, President. In the main reply, the Secretary said that we want to build a foster-friendly society. I fully agree with this. Now, to create this culture, we need the participation of the business sector, especially large enterprises. So has the Secretary considered inviting large enterprises to give a hand, for example, incentivizing their own employees to become foster families? For those who are still sitting on the fence, the recognition from their own employers may encourage them to take the leap. Secretary, I believe we have been doing this already, but we will work harder. We also have the Good Employer Charter. Whenever I attend activities in relation to the Charter, I saw a lot of employers coming up with innovative ideas to make the workplace more child-friendly. So maybe they can provide some incentives to employees to become foster parents, not necessarily financial incentives. Thank you. Reverend Peter KOON. Thank you, President. Although unmarried persons are also eligible to become foster parents, it is quite rare that they get approved to be foster parents. Now, because of the new form of families in society, will the government facilitate the approval of single persons to become foster parents? Secretary, thank you. We have adopted a new policy, that is the 1+1 scheme, starting in 2024. That is, applicants can apply together with their family and friends. Now, 2 years on, I think we have a good start. There are so far 11 1+1 foster families. I think we need to start off slowly because those are underprivileged children. We need to make sure that they are safe and sound. With more experience, I think we can make better use of the 1+1 recruitment scheme so that more dedicated individuals, not necessarily from a conventional marriage, can also become foster parents. Thank you.
Question 4, Mr. Kitson Yang. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. It has been reported that the Standard Chartered Hong Kong Marathon 2026 received over 120,000 applications, with oversubscription reaching a record high. There are views that the authorities should optimize the marathon to accommodate more runners and strengthen its economic impact as a mega event. In this connection, will the government inform this council, first, whether it will discuss with the Hong Kong China Association of Athletics affiliates to arrange more race days and categories of the marathon so as to expand its scale? If so, what are the details, if not the reasons for that? Second, whether it will discuss with the HKAAA the incorporation of various harbourfront venues into the marathon's race route to create a harbourfront marathon. If so, what are the details, if not the reasons for that? And third, whether it will work with the HKAAA to jointly strive for the marathon to be recognized as one of the world marathon majors so as to attract more overseas runners to take part in the race in Hong Kong. Secretary for Culture, Sport and Tourism. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. The Standard Chartered Hong Kong Marathon is organized by the Hong Kong China Association of Athletics affiliates. Since 2005, it has been awarded the M-Mark status with funding support, and it has developed into the most sizable and representative long-distance running event in Hong Kong, widely welcomed by local and international running enthusiasts. The government welcomes the continuous efforts of the HKAAA, which has the support and active cooperation from sponsors, various government departments and stakeholders to enhance the scale, level and international appeal of the event. The number of runners in the marathon has grown from about 1,000 in the inaugural 1997 event to about 74,000 in 2026. This year's event also included 20 invited overseas world-class athletes and about 19,250 individual runners from more than 110 countries or regions. Non-local athletes made up a record high of 25%. This shows the event's growing international appeal. The government's consolidated reply to Mr. Kitson Yang's question is as follows. The marathon is a successful major sports event that attracts visitors to Hong Kong and boosts local spending while enhancing Hong Kong's local sporting atmosphere. Therefore, the government supports the HKAAA in continuing to host the event and, where practicable, expanding its scale. We believe that when planning further development of the event, the HKAAA should carefully weigh the development objectives. That is, whether to raise the event's professional standards to make the event more competitive or to make the event a festive event for all, allowing more members of the public and visitors to take part. These two directions are not mutually exclusive. Still, clear goals and directions are crucial for the long-term success of the marathon. The Culture, Sport and Tourism Bureau has requested the HKAAA to actively study the development of the marathon, including the two objectives I've mentioned, and make recommendations on this matter. We know that the HKAAA has formed a working group to carry out the work. We hope that the HKAAA will submit concrete proposals within a few months. The CSTB and the relevant departments will also provide feedback and assistance. We believe that clear development recommendations from the HKAAA will also help sponsors and stakeholders explore ways to collaborate with each other and support the event. The government agrees that the HKAAA should study the way forward of the marathon, and when doing so, it should consider various options, including the race route, time of hosting the event, and number of runners. On the race route, with the gradual completion of more harbourfront enhancement projects such as the East Coast Park Precinct, the government welcomes the use of landmark harbourfront locations for different running competitions and events to enhance runners' experience and showcase Hong Kong's unique urban landscape. The CSTB has asked the HKAAA to review different options through the working group and conduct an overall assessment of factors such as race route conditions, climate conditions, runners' experience, safety, emergency response mechanisms, and impact on people's daily lives. Currently, the marathon has been recognized by the World Athletics as a gold label road race that attracts a large number of local and overseas runners. It has already become a well-known international marathon event. Both the platinum label road races and the World Marathon Majors represent the highest level of global marathon events, featuring a substantial presence of world-class marathon elites. If Hong Kong hosts such events, it will have a highly positive impact on Hong Kong's international image and sports tourism development. As I have said, the HKAAA needs to carefully study the way forward of the marathon. If the direction is to make the race an even higher level international event, then the HKAAA must study the related conditions and feasibility. The government hopes that the HKAAA can complete a feasibility assessment as soon as possible and establish a clear development direction so that the government can offer the necessary support and assistance. The government acknowledges the public expectation to expand the scale of the marathon, optimize its race route design, and raise its international status. We will continue to offer advice and assistance to the HKAAA on various key aspects such as safety, cost effectiveness, and maintenance of event quality so that the HKAAA can put forward concrete proposals for the way forward of the marathon. We are committed to striking a balance between promoting sports development, enhancing tourism benefits, and maintaining societal operations so that runners, citizens, and the entire community as a whole can benefit. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Kitson Yang. Thank you. Hong Kong has the potential to become a place that hosts a marathon on the World Marathon Majors. Look at our hotels, our safe city, and our other conditions. We have what it takes. Still, concerted effort is needed to go from a gold label race event to a platinum level and a world major marathon. But our race route is holding us back because our runners cannot run as fast as they can given the current conditions. By 2028, we will have a 38-kilometer race route along the harbor front. We still have 12 kilometers of the harbor front to go. Will the Secretary work with other directors to ensure enough space along the harbor front so that we can host future marathon events and upgrade this event in the future? Secretary, I thank Mr. Yang for his follow-up questions. We have seen solid development along our harbor front. On the island side, we have linked up different parts of the harbor front. We have a boardwalk. As I said in my main reply, as more harbor front enhancement projects are completed, we welcome the use of these landmark harbor front locations for running events. For a marathon, on the other hand, we need to consider many factors holistically. We have to consider the road, the traffic, safety of runners, and visibility, as well as the impact on people. For the boardwalks and roads along the harbor front, those roads and paths are flat. You get few traffic lights or junctions interrupting the path. But those roads and paths are also narrow. Mr. Kitson Yang mentioned speed. I believe he was referring to top-notch runners. The narrow space places a limit on the speed and the number of runners we can accommodate. If we seal off the bridges and highways, then you will get wider roads so that we can accommodate runners and there will be supplies spots. If we go for the boardwalks, then we will only be able to allow fewer runners. So we have to consider supplies and the impact on people. And when it comes to arranging more race events, we have to consider the windows of availability. Mr. Kitson-Yang proposed going from a gold label to the platinum label. The requirements and standards will also go up. Runners will also run at a higher speed. So for that, we will have to consider the safety of the race route. Ms. Vivian Kong. We're trying to promote the Tourism Plus initiative. Marathons are more than just a sports event. So for our marathons, can we combine that with a dining experience so that we get runners who come here for the marathon to also enjoy our food, and then we develop our tourism sector? Secretary. Thank you. Indeed, we can take an integrated approach to sports and tourism through marathons. Many runners came here for the marathon. This year, we welcomed 19,250 runners from more than 110 countries and regions for the marathon. That's a major source of tourists, and there are also people who can tell our stories well. As I said, we can consider putting landmarks of Hong Kong along the race route for our runners to experience. Some people may wonder, if you treat the runners to milk tea, then the runners may have to use the washroom halfway through the route. We will not get in the way of the race. For tourists looking to experience Hong Kong, especially the charm of Hong Kong, the marathon, we can consider showing these visitors our special delight. Ms. Kong is from the tourism sector. She proposed combining tourism and sports. Indeed, for ordinary runners, we can incorporate features of Hong Kong. In France, in Bordeaux, they offer red wine for their marathon. Of course, for our top-notch runners, we cannot give a glass of red wine to the top-notch runners trying to finish as fast as they can. But for other ordinary runners, they may enjoy a delight. For running along the waterfront, I'm not sure if the harborfront route works for the full marathon, so that will be for the HKAAA to study. But a nighttime run may be a way for runners to experience the nighttime scene of Hong Kong. That's something we can explore. For the standard chartered marathon, we can consider incorporating elements that can enhance a sense of participation and showcase the unique features of our city and the charm of our urban landscape. Mr. Perry Yu. I agree with the Secretary on the idea of enhancing the professionalism of the event, or we can get more people to take part in the marathon. These two goals are not mutually exclusive. It's just up to the HKAAA to run the event so that we can achieve both goals. I want to bring up the M-Mark status. The marathon is a success story of the M-Mark system. Last year, the criteria of the M-Mark recognition was adjusted, and tourist satisfaction is now part of the criteria. So how do we use the M-Mark system to make our event more appealing? so that we can boost our economy through sports tourism? What measures will we have, and how do we measure the boost to the economy? Secretary. Indeed, the NMARC system funds large-scale sports events in Hong Kong. We want not just the sports events, but also we want to see an economic boost. Last August, we announced the latest round of enhancements to the NMARC system. We require the applicant to survey the participants, including the tourists of an event. And we also require the applicant to measure the success of the event, meaning the number of attendances and the economic boost. When we vet the applications for funding, we focus on high-profile events of international appeal. That's because we want to make sure the events are attractive. For competitive events where scores are involved, more top-notch athletes will be more likely to take part, and that will make the events more attractive. On the scoring system, we're also taking into account the impact on tourism and the economic boost. An event may score less on sport, but that event may bring more economic benefits. We will also give thought to such applications, so that's part of the amendment to the criteria. The funding, once granted, will be $15 million. In the past, it was either giving the funding or denying it, but it was just $15 million. But now we take a different approach. When an event has established goodwill, we will work with the event organizer to gradually build on that successful event. So these are some changes we have made. For 2025 to 26 and 2026 all the way to 2028, we have received 50 applications covering up the years up to 2028. Some applications are being vetted. Others we have decided not to grant funding for the time being, and as at the 2nd of this month, we have reached an interim conclusion on some events, and we believe these events will offer an economic boost to Hong Kong. Dr. Alvin Lee. We had cases of runners feeling sick or losing their lives during the marathon. So what do we do about the healthcare support? Will we consider a restriction on the places so that we can manage the risks and keeping the event as an attractive event? Secretary. I thank Dr. Lee for his question, because this is an opportunity for me to make a point. We welcome participation in the marathon, but taking part in the marathon requires training. And also we need people who are in good form. This is true for the full marathon. It's not a good idea for an inexperienced runner to take part in the full marathon. There are other sports events throughout the year, but this problem is particularly obvious in the Standard Chartered Marathon. We pay attention to injuries and deaths during the injury, and we require the HKAAA to monitor the situation. We have an established mechanism for the HKAAA to take safety precautions and adopt risk monitoring. The HKAAA has to put runners into different groups based on their age and their ability. So that means the elite runners will not be in the same group as ordinary amateur runners. The time allowed for each event will also be reviewed. There were also reminders before the event. Improvement has been made to the health medical support along the route. After each event, we review the event and take follow-up actions. The HKA will also have to work closely with government departments and healthcare institutions about the healthcare support. Now, on whether we can take the marathon to a higher level, such as a World Marathon Majors event, if we get to that level, the more rigorous requirements will apply, and that covers finishing time, and we will also need proof from applicants on previous results. If we go to a higher level, then these requirements will apply. Professor Michael Ngai. I took more than 600 faculty members and students from the City U to take part in the marathon. And other students also served as volunteers. We also trained students with physical disabilities to take part in the event. With mega events, you can achieve synergy. Take the rugby sevens. You can time the event with mega financial events. That way, the fund managers come here, you have conferences. Professor Ngai, please get to your question. So you can synergize the marathon with other events. So can the CSD be considered working with businesses and social welfare organizations so that we incorporate more features into the event? That will help us get more people to take part in the whole process. Secretary. I thank Professor Ngai and the City University for their support for the marathon. Adding more places to certain categories will mean we have to take away some places from other categories. This year, 19,250 overseas or non-local runners took part in the marathon. Local runners complained that they did not get to take part. Without any major changes to the race route, and we keep the number of race dates, I doubt we can increase the number of places. After all, we only have 74,000 places. On lengthening the time for the event, or more race days, or major changes to the race route, if we can do that, then we can consider Professor Ngai's suggestion.
Question 5, Mr. TAM Chun-kwok. Thank you, Deputy President. Some members of the public have relayed that electric mobility devices, or EMDs, are widely used in Hong Kong, particularly by residents in the new territories, who often use them for short-distance commuting. However, some users operate such devices recklessly on roads, and incidents of battery short-circuit explosions during charging occur from time to time, rendering such devices a potential safety hazard in the community. Regarding the regulation of EMDs, will the government inform this council, 1. of the number of persons arrested in the past 2 years for involvement in the illegal use of EMDs, as well as the number and nature of accidents, such as traffic accidents and short circuits during charging, arising from the use of such devices, the number of casualties in such accidents. 2. Of the progress and details of the legislative work for regulating EMDs, as well as when the certification standards for such devices will be introduced and come into effect. The measures put in place by the government to reduce accidents involving such devices before the completion of the relevant legislative work. And 3. As it is learned that the mainland has recently further regulated the use of EMDs, with some cities prohibiting the carrying of such devices into lifts to avoid causing fires, whether the government will follow such practice. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. Deputy President, the government has always adopted an open attitude towards new technologies for promoting green commuting whilst attaching great importance to road safety. We note that EMDs are becoming increasingly popular around the world. We plan to legislate and introduce regulatory arrangements this year to enable the safe use of EMDs within designated areas. This will provide an effective first, last-mile short-distance commuting solution and will offer another green and low-carbon personal travel option, complementing the development of cycle tracks in new development areas. In consultation with the Security Bureau, the Development Bureau, the Transport Department, the Hong Kong Police Force, the Fire Services Department, and the Electrical and Mechanical Services Department, my reply to Mr. Tam Chun-kwok is as follows. 1. As EMDs are mechanically propelled, they fall within the current definition of motor vehicles under the Road Traffic Ordinance, and the use of unregistered or unlicensed EMDs may contravene the relevant laws. To ensure road safety, the police force carries out operations from time to time and takes strict enforcement actions against the illegal use of EMDs. Over the past 2 years, there were 3 traffic accidents involving EMDs in 2024 and 8 in 2025. And for fire incidents involving EMDs, there were 12 and 17 cases respectively in 2024 and 2025, with electrical faults being the primary cause. Both figures were largely stable compared with the past few years, and no fatal accidents were involved. However, there is a rising trend in the number of persons arrested by the police force for the illegal use of EMDs, rising from 647 persons in 2024 to 760 persons in 2025. These figures indicate that there is a need to step up the regulation to ensure the safe use of EMDs. 2 and 3. To ensure the product quality and safety of EMDs, the TD and the Hong Kong Productivity Council are devising a product certification mechanism having regard to practices in various regions. As the core of the regulatory framework, the certification mechanism will require the engagement of certification bodies to evaluate whether various models of EMDs comply with the technical specifications and motor requirements drawn up by the TD. A certification label with a QR code will be affixed to certified products for easy identification by the public and law enforcement officers. The TD has gauged the views of various stakeholders including manufacturers, suppliers, user organizations, testing labs, professional institutions, the electrical panel on transport, the district councils related to the trial arrangements, and the Transport Advisory Committee, so as to develop a mechanism and a set of standards that are practicable and safety-oriented. Meanwhile, the TD is working with the Productivity Council to implement simulated certification arrangements for industry participation to gain trial experience and refine the certification requirements and arrangements. On the fire safety aspect mentioned in the question, the TD is working with the FSD to discuss concrete measures to minimize the fire risks associated with EMDs. In this regard, battery safety is a critical part of the above certification arrangements. Given that the liquid electrolytes currently used in lithium-ion batteries are flammable, the TD pays particular attention in formulating the certification arrangements and will require certification bodies to conduct certification tests on the batteries such as overcharging or discharging control, short circuit and overheating protection, vibration and mechanical shock tests in accordance with standards adopted in the mainland and other major jurisdictions in the world so as to ensure product safety. We're also exploring the possibility of including the non-flammable semi-solid and solid batteries into the certification scheme. The latest requirements adopted by other places, including fire safety requirements, will be suitably incorporated into the certification standards to be proposed by the TD and will be updated in the future as appropriate. The TD also plans to include recommendations on the charging and use of battery in the code of practice. Carrying certified EMDs that are compliant with safety standards into indoor areas, including elevators, will not compromise fire safety. In addition, the government plans to establish clear guidelines under the product certification arrangements so that the responsibilities of various stakeholders, including manufacturers, suppliers, and certification bodies, will be set out with clarity. As for EMD users, they must be at least 16 years old, wear a helmet, and use compliant products. The TD has all along been collaborating with the Road Safety Council and the police force in publicizing messages on road safety and the use of EMDs through various channels, including publications, websites, and social media platforms. We will continue to enhance safety awareness among the public through publicity and education. Upon introduction of the regulatory arrangements, relevant guidelines will also be incorporated in the Code of Practice to be issued by the TD as an ongoing effort to instill proper driving attitude and disseminate safety messages among EMD users. As the topic has a wide coverage, the government will conduct extensive consultation with stakeholders on the regulatory arrangements of EMDs. We plan to consult the Electrical Panel on Transport within this year. Thank you, Deputy President. Mr. Tam Chun-kwok. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, President. Over the past few months, there were a few fire incidents as well as explosion accidents involving batteries as well as EMDs. People are quite concerned about these cases. We see that starting from this year, the MTRC is prohibiting passengers from bringing EMDs into their stations. We see that different organizations are attaching importance to this kind of risks. However, according to the reply of the Secretary, it seems that it will still take the government some time before it could implement the regulatory arrangement or enact legislation. In the meantime, how would the government prevent such accidents from happening? For example, will the government instruct its departments, such as the Housing Department, to first step up regulation by, for example, prohibiting people from bringing EMDs into elevators? Secretary, I thank Mr. Tam for the question. As said in my major reply, we are working on the product quality as well as product safety. With the Productivity Council, we are drawing references from different practices around the world to come up with a certification standards. We see that in the mainland as well as other places in the world, for example, in European countries or in Singapore, so far there haven't been any legislative or statutory requirements in relation to EMDs in elevators. We see that in the mainland cities as well as in other places, EMDs have become more and more popular. I will instruct the relevant departments so that they could work with their counterparts, such as relevant mainland cities, on how we can roll out product certification or how to prevent fire safety problems. Perhaps we could, through administrative means or existing legislations and ordinances, to come up with more stringent requirements. Mr. Scotland. Thank you, Deputy President. As said in the major reply, the Secretary mentioned that for some time we see an increasing number in relation to the number of arrested persons involving the illegal use of EMDs. I've got a lot of complaints from the community. These EMDs cannot just be found on streets but also in parks as well as housing estates. How can the police force catch all of these people? My question is, before legislation enactment, will there be clearer guidelines for the police or for other government departments to prevent accidents that involve the use of EMDs? Secretary, I thank Mr. Scotland for the question. We are to roll out a certification mechanism. We will come up with a consistent regulatory framework. On one hand, we encourage people to use EMDs, but on the other hand, we have to ensure safety. They are equally important. In 2021, 22, and 23, the government, together with the relevant parties, conducted trials, for example, on cycle tracks, to allow the co-shared use of bicycles as well as EMDs. We tried to spot any problems that might arise. We also collected feedback from users of cycle tracks to see what their concerns are. We will consolidate the comments provided by members of the public. On the other hand, for the police force, they from time to time mount law enforcement operations. Moving forward, we will continue with our law enforcement efforts as well as our education and publicity efforts. Professor William Wong, thank you. The use of EMDs often take place in public housing estates or around village houses and on cycle tracks. It's hard to enforce the law for the government. Will the government step up the use of technology? For example, will it make use of CCTV or AI image analysis or even drones for conducting patrols to step up detection efficiency? Secretary, I thank the member for the comments. The TD has been working with the police force. On the future legislation, we will clearly state that what is defined as an EMD and what the certification requirements are, so that we have the legal basis for the police force to carry out law enforcement actions in the future. On the other hand, we want to facilitate the police force for conducting inspections or taking law enforcement actions on the road. As far as I understand, they've been making use of technology. For example, they have cameras, they make use of AI and even drones, so that they do not have to conduct the inspection manually. And also, the law enforcement actions could cover remote areas. Under the working group on promoting low-altitude economy, we are working with the police force to study how we can make use of technology to facilitate the work of the police force. Thank you. Mr. Ehrenbock. Thank you, Deputy President. According to the Secretary, in 2024, 647 people were arrested, and in 2025, 760. So there was an increase. We see that there is a demand for EMDs in Hong Kong. It's just that the police force will have to take law enforcement actions. We don't want the police to be enemies of the public. So I'm happy to see that the government is going to roll out its legislative proposals within this year. However, it does take time for the government to complete the legislative exercise. In the meantime, would it be possible for the government to allow people to legally use EMDs in private housing estates? After all, the areas in private housing estates are regulated under Cap 374. So I want to know if the government can exercise discretion in this regard to allow people to use EMDs. Secretary, I understand where the member is coming from. If we have the legal basis for implementing the certification mechanism to ensure product quality, well, we will ensure safety comes first. In the future, we want to implement the mechanism on a trial basis first. We will allow, for example, motorized personal mobility aids or power-assisted pedal cycles to be used legally first. We want to accumulate more experience as we build the legal basis. We want to enhance people's understanding of this as well. Currently, apart from preparing for the legislative exercise, we're working on a code of conduct. We are working with the TD, the Housing Department, as well as the police force. We are working towards establishing a code of practice. We'll see if we can speed up our work in this regard. Lastly, in private housing estates or even in public housing estates, we will work with the Housing Department to see how we can make use of the existing legislations. We want to apply the current definition in our laws and make it clear to local residents so that they won't be caught inadvertently. Mr. Chris Yip, according to the administration's reply, there will be a certification mechanism for EMDs. It comes with a QR code system. And this is to ensure that the requirements drawn up by the TD as well as the EMSD could be complied with. I think the administration is taking the right direction. In terms of protecting road users as well as members of the public, will the government consider regulating EMDs by imposing a speed limit of, for example, 25 kilometers per hour if someone engages in illegal modification or alteration of EMDs? Will that become a criminal offense? Secretary, I thank the member for the questions. We're going to come up with rules and regulations. I believe we can take the lead in terms of rolling out the certification mechanism to ensure product safety and product quality. Now, the member just now mentioned about the possibility of imposing a speed limit. Well, we're looking into this. It really depends on what kind of EMDs it is. It could be an electric unicycle. It could also be a power-assisted pedal cycles. It depends on the weight of the EMDs as well as the speed of the EMDs. And accidents might arise depending on how road users or users of EMD use the devices. Now, we are thinking of asking riders to wear a helmet, and we are promoting this kind of safety awareness as well as culture. We are going to include this in our future legislations too. Thank you. Mr. Webster, the government on the cycle tracks outside the Hong Kong Science Park as well as along the promenade in Tong Chun Street in Cheung Kwan O conducted trials for registered EMDs, including electric skateboards and electric scooters. I want to know the effectiveness of the trials. What were the outcomes? Would the trial be extended to Sha Tin and as well as the northern metropolis so that the government could collect more feedback so as to prepare for the legislative amendments? Secretary, in 2021, 22, and 23, in Cheung Kwan O South as well as in the cycle tracks near the Hong Kong Science Park, we conducted trials. We also worked with the Hong Kong Technology Corporations in Pak Shek Kok to carry out a 6-month trial on the cycle track there. We collected some very valuable data to share with members. We consolidated some of the data, and through the co-shared use program, we interviewed about 2,000 members of the public on their acceptability of the use of EMDs on cycle tracks. Some of them are of the view that if there is regulation and that if the EMDs comply with the safety requirements and technical specifications, EMDs could be used on cycle tracks. Others are of the view that there might not be enough space on cycle tracks for the co-shared use of bikes as well as EMDs. We'll further analyze the data. We hope to strike a balance so that while we strive to promote green commuting, we can ensure the safety of road users. We will look at comments about the width of cycle tracks, support and ancillary facilities, as well as parking spaces. Some even raised comments about charging facilities. These are all very valuable comments. We will address these one by one to ensure that there will be a comprehensive system in place. Ms. Christine Fong, EMDs keep evolving from electric unicycles. We nowadays even see electric suitcases that are used on the roads by people. Earlier on, the TD conducted a survey. About 60% of the respondents support the use of regulated EMDs on cycle tracks. The remaining 30% of the respondents have reservation about this. According to the Secretary, the government will consult the Transport Advisory Committee I wonder if the Secretary would consider this. There are always new EMDs or motorized personal mobility aids on the market. Will the government be able to move with the times in terms of its regulations so that the business sector as well as the public could be aware of the latest regulation? Secretary, I thank Ms. Fong for the question. We will, as soon as possible, consolidate the comments and feedback we got from our legislative proposals, and we will consult the Electrical Panel on Transport as well as the Transport Advisory Committee. At the same time, we will closely monitor the new products that are rolled out on the market. We will also draw reference from the different practices in different places. We hope that we can at least set the overall direction for our legislations, and also in the future code of practice, we hope to cover different kinds of products so that we can ensure good regulation. Thank you.
Last question seeking an oral reply, Mr. Adrian HO. Thank you, President. A number of tobacco control measures have been implemented under the Tobacco Control Legislation Amendment Bill 2025 passed last year. In this connection, will the government inform this council? 1. Given that while the statutory no smoking areas have been extended to public places that lie within 3 meters from access points of specified premises after the legislative amendment exercise, there are views that in order to balance various needs and accommodate the hosting of cultural and sports mega events, the government should establish designated smoking areas in public places and step up enforcement during specific periods. For example, during mega events to enhance public experience and safety, whether the government will study the relevant proposals. 2. Of the number of inspections conducted by the government to combat illicit cigarette activities and the number of fixed penalty notices issued for contravention of tobacco control measures each month since the legislative amendment exercise, the respective staffing establishments of frontline officers of various ranks responsible for enforcement. And 3. Given that while the government has earlier on indicated that a total smoking ban will be implemented at construction sites, it does not cover the interior of residential units in housing estates undergoing major maintenance. Whether the government has plans to amend the relevant tobacco control legislation to align with the smoking ban at site areas, and to study the feasibility of extending the coverage of the smoking ban in respect of domestic repair works, such as implementing a smoking ban at residential units currently undergoing works or internal renovations. Secretary for Health. President, the principle that smoking is hazardous to health is one that I trust all electrical members and the general public of Hong Kong, smokers and non-smokers alike, understand and would not dispute. For many years, the HKSAR government has pursued tobacco control policies through a multi-pronged and progressive approach to protect the people from the harm caused by tobacco. The consolidated reply in consultation with the Labour and Welfare Bureau, the Customs and Excise Department, and the Department of Health on the question raised by Mr. Adrian HO is as follows. 1. Cultural and sports activities are beneficial to the body and the mind and can help develop mega event economy. Hong Kong is revered as the events capital of Asia and the world's meeting place, and is at the same time recognized to be at the forefront of tobacco control in China by the National Health Commission as well as the WHO. Cultural and mega events and a smoke-free city are not contradictory, rather they complement each other. Globally, the non-smoking population far outnumbers smokers, and proportion of non-smokers among citizens and visitors participating in cultural and sports events should be greater. A truly smoke-free and fresh environment is essential for enhancing the experience at mega arts and cultural events and safety of residents and visitors alike, while elevating the city's image and quality. For those participating in cultural and sports events, the establishment of designated smoking areas in public places at the event venues which are filled with secondhand smoke does nothing to enhance their experience. Rather, it would ruin their experience. One of the government's tobacco control directions is to periodically amend legislation to expand no smoking areas to eliminate the harm caused by secondhand smoke and protect the public. At present, the vast majority of the key venues for hosting cultural and sports events such as cinemas, theaters, concert halls, parks and stadiums, whether indoor or outdoor, already have a smoking ban in place. Starting from 1st of January this year, smoking is also prohibited while queuing to enter these venues. The aim is to ensure smoke-free cultural and sports activities and events. Furthermore, the Smoking Public Health Ordinance, Chapter 371, also empowers the Secretary for Health to designate extensive no-smoking areas based on local circumstances, views of the public and the district councils, and subject to practical needs and feasibility, say, in response to mega events, while setting applicable conditions and exemptions. During mega events, the TACO, Tobacco and Alcohol Control Office of the Department of Health, will conduct joint operations with relevant departments as circumstances require. We also encourage venue operators to make good use of the guidelines and no smoking signage provided by TACO to clearly convey the messages on tobacco control. The government understands that different sectors of society have varying considerations and opinions regarding the management of public spaces. However, there is currently no scientific evidence to support the notion that designated smoking areas can effectively protect members of the public from the harm caused by secondhand smoke. On the contrary, the WHO has stated that no measures, including ventilation, air filtration, the use of designated smoking areas, whether with separate ventilation systems or not, or even engineering approaches, can prevent the public's exposure to secondhand smoke. This is because the particulate matter in smoke can penetrate any ventilation system and disperse throughout the environment, while a significant portion of the toxic components in smoke are colorless and odorless, posing direct and immediate hazards to the cardiovascular and respiratory systems. Moreover, the public may consequently be misled into believing that establishing designated smoking areas is sufficient to protect public health and eliminate the harm of secondhand smoke. This effectively conveys erroneous public health messages and will even renormalize the behavior of smoking in public areas, undermining the move towards a smoke-free Hong Kong. 2. One key focus of the Tobacco Control Legislation Amendment Ordinance 2025 passed by LegCo last year is to combat illicit cigarettes. Mainly enforced by the CNED, the relevant penalties were increased to a fine of 2 million Hong Kong dollars and 7 years imprisonment immediately following the amendment ordinance's gazettal on 19th of September last year. The amendment ordinance further stipulates that any cigarette sold below the tobacco duty rate must provide proof of taxation, failing which they shall be presumed to be duty unpaid. Officers of the CNED have launched multiple special operations by conducting surprise inspections at cigarette retail outlets across the territory, uncovering a number of illegal sales points selling cigarettes below the tobacco duty rate. The CNED has consistently adopted a comprehensive enforcement strategy to combat illicit cigarettes and has been conducting anti-illicit cigarette inspections across the territory and on online platforms. Frontline officers of the Customs and Excise Department, including those responsible for passenger and cargo clearance, participate in intercepting illicit cigarettes. As they concurrently perform other clearance duties, it is difficult to quantify the number of officers involved by relevant items of their duties. To combat cheap whites, the Customs and Excise Department successfully completed a 3-month pilot run for the duty stamp system. During the process, multiple rounds of information sessions were organized for the industry. The department plans to fully implement the system in the second quarter of 2027 to effectively distinguish duty-paid cigarettes from the ones that have not paid such duty. Enforcement of illegal smoking and the issuance of fixed penalty notices is the responsibility of TACO. Enforcement and staffing figures of TACO since the passage of the amendment ordinance are set out in the annex for members' reference. In December last year alone, a total of 3,578 inspections were conducted, and 691 fixed penalty notices were issued. Part 3 of Mr. Ho's question concerns the comprehensive smoking ban at construction sites. Comprehensive smoking ban in construction sites involves contractors and individuals. Regarding the penalty for contractors. The Labor and Welfare Bureau is amending the Construction Site Safety Regulations Chapter 59I to prohibit any smoking behavior that poses high risk in construction sites, including new building sites and large-scale renovation sites, thereby enhancing safety. As for behavior to smoke in construction sites, this clearly poses a fire hazard and also has public health implications. In response to the violations by individuals who smoke in construction sites, the Labor and Welfare Bureau will make reference to fine levels and the fixed penalty notice mechanism in Smoking Public Health Ordinance Chapter 371 and the Fixed Penalty Smoking Offences Ordinance Chapter 600, and is considering the approach for the legislative amendments. In fact, indoor public areas in a residential building, such as lift lobbies and rear staircases, regardless of whether they are included as part of the construction site during building renovations, are already indoor areas within workplaces or public places under the ordinance and are statutory no-smoking areas. The proposal being considered by the Labor and Welfare Bureau would include other parts of the building under renovation, such as external wall works, as non-smoking areas. Nevertheless, private domestic premises are not covered under the ordinance, and a decision of which was made based on considerations of personal privacy in private premises and the difficulties of enforcement when the government implemented a comprehensive smoking ban at indoor public places. In this legislative amendment exercise, the Labor and Welfare Bureau will make reference to the same experience and have domestic premises under renovation exempted. Today, the Secretary for Labor and Welfare is also present to address follow-up questions from members. Mr. Adrian HO, thank you. President, we have many people who are concerned about behavior where people would smoke while walking on the street. Some think there should be more targeted enforcement regarding such behavior, such as having a smoking ban in designated pedestrian areas or to set up designated smoking areas so as to prevent people from walking on the street and smoking while doing that. Does the administration have new tobacco control measures after they have been implemented, collect feedback from the public and formulate potential measures against people smoking while walking on the street? Secretary for Health. When we considered the legislative amendments for the last exercise, we did consider the impact of such behavior and relevant public opinion. And in fact, the law empowers the secretary, that is me, to designate some areas to become designated no smoking areas. With this, we have greater flexibility to consider the flow in a particular area, the hazard of secondhand smoke, and the opinions of the public as well as district councils. With this, we will not only target behavior for those smoking while walking on the street, but just standing there because of the impact of secondhand smoke this kind of behavior will bring about. Honestly, it's hard to define whether one is smoking while walking on the street when they're just pacing a few steps. And with Hong Kong being a crowded place, we believe with designation of no smoking areas will be a better solution. Thank you. Dr. Thomas So. Thank you, President. About people smoking while walking on the street, I have a follow-up question. I observed while I was driving, there would be drivers smoking and they would hold their cigarettes outside their car window. I want to ask if the administration has any plans to regulate such a behavior. Secretary. Regarding motorists smoking in their cars or vehicles, depending on where they are, enforcement action might be taken. It does not matter whether they're inside the vehicle or outside of the vehicle, even if they're inside a vehicle, but if it's indoor premises, that is not a non-smoking area. one will not be breaking the law, but if one is in a vehicle while being in a car park, enforcement action may be taken. Mr. Xiu Ka-fei, about a ban on smoking in construction sites, I believe most of the public will support and agree. But the Bureau said earlier the penalties will be harsh, up to hundreds of thousands. It actually shocked the sector. I thank the Bureau for clarifying yesterday that for employees it would be $3,000. That is more of a reasonable penalty. But for contractors, it will still amount to about $400,000. Would you consider making adjustments to make it easier for contractors? Secretary for Labor and Welfare. Thank you, Mr. Xiu, for your questions. $400,000 is the maximum penalty. We need the contractors to take reasonable measures to ensure a smoking ban is enforced in construction sites. We talk to contractors and we ask them to affix notices, and if workers smoke, they should have some storage areas for lighters and cigarettes for workers. If they have taken reasonable measures, we will not initiate prosecution lightly. But if we go to a construction site and there are cigarette butts everywhere, I think it would be appropriate that we initiate prosecution. Thank you. Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Thank you, President. Before we have a full smoking ban in construction sites, we already have smoking ban in some construction sites, and there are some rules and in-house penalties. Some workers think the rules are not reasonable because sometimes when a cigarette butt is found, all of the 5 or 6 workers will be punished. And I think with now fixed penalty notices to be issued, is there still such need, or is it reasonable to have such in-house rules? Can the Labor and Welfare Bureau communicate with the contractors on this? Secretary for Labor and Welfare. I think these are 2 separate matters. We do have laws prohibiting certain behavior, or there are some rules in employment contracts. If employees think the rules set by the employers are too harsh, they can come to the Labor Department for help, and the Labor Department can provide some sort of mediation. But I think in general, the consensus is to have voluntary agreement where there will be no smoking in construction sites to prevent a fire hazard and enhance construction safety. Thank you. Mr. Chen Ha-kun, the tobacco control measures cover kindergartens, hospitals, public transport, interchanges, etc. That is the 3 meters from access points of specified premises. But then I note that for MTR exits and entrances, these are often not no smoking areas. So here, close to Taiwai Station, there is a crossing right on the right here, and many people are smoking, as you can see in the middle here. I can't help but smell the secondhand smoke when we are about to cross the road. So would the Bureau consider including MTR exits and entrances to be no smoking areas? Secretary for Health, I understand for non-smokers, they hate secondhand smoke and they hate having no choice but to inhale such secondhand smoke. In the last amendment exercise, we targeted premises where people are particularly vulnerable, such as kindergartens, primary schools, or schools in general, as well as hospitals, medical premises, residential care homes for the elderly. So patients children and elderly persons are more vulnerable to the hazards brought about by secondhand smoke, which is why we included those premises in the last amendment exercise. As for MTR exits and entrances, of course, many people make use of the MTR system, but the groups that often frequent the exits or entrances smoking there are not our target group, so we do not have such plans to include these as no smoking areas just yet. Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, President. I actually took part in the deliberations of the Bills Committee on Chapter 371. I would like to clarify something about the direction and strategy with the Secretary for Health. I agree that there is no contradiction between protecting the health of the general public and visitors as well as developing mega events. And I heard in the reply that the Bureau plans to make use of designated non-smoking areas rather than setting up designated smoking areas to do so. I want the Bureau to elaborate on making use of powers of the law to designate non-smoking areas. What factors will you consider? Secretary for Health. When we consider designating or expanding non-smoking areas, there are many factors to consider. Our goal is, of course, to protect those who don't smoke so that they will not suffer from hazards brought about by smoking. We will consider the flow of people in the area and whether the group frequenting a particular area is especially vulnerable to hazards brought about by secondhand smoke. For specific activities or designated pedestrian areas, we would consider such. And for some dedicated entrances for children, elderly persons, and patients, such as hospitals, we have designated no smoking areas. This is a factor we will consider. We have great concern about the idea of setting up designated smoking areas because there is no scientific evidence to support that.
Members' motion with no legislative effect